expert Robert Kiyosaki. We are all waiting on Robert Harper as well, who I believe is just joining us. We have two Roberts, so I'm going to address you both by your last names. Here we go. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Kiyosaki. All right, this morning, Dow opening at its lowest since October. So what should investors do? Sell or buy?
Well, I don't give investment advice, but personally, I'm back in the market right now. I got out in 1998, maybe a little bit too early. But right now is the time. I'm not buying it, but I am going back in now. You always go in when the height of pessimism is at its highest.
Now, but Mr. Kiyosaki, you've got people, you just heard in our report, perhaps leading into this, you got people instead, investing in goats instead of the market right now. So why are you buying? Why?
Well, maybe I should look at goats too, but because this is when the bargains are here. You should never buy at the peak of a market. Every boom has a bust, and unfortunately, all the amateurs come in at the height of a boom, and then they sell at the bottom of a bust. They buy high and sell low. And this is a classic time. If you ever wanted to get rich, this is the time you should be going in, getting out.
All right, Mr. Robert Harper, you agree?
Yeah, no, I don't agree. I think that one of the things that people need to realize is that, there's a lot of softness in the market right now, and people have been, very questioning, what's happening. And I think that if you see that, over the last 2 or 3 days, we lost about $18 billion in the stock market. People's portfolios have been affected by this, very bad. And I think that one of the things that people have to realize is that it's not the end of this. We have information coming out about companies like Quest Communications, which they think may have some problems, and the SEC is investigating them. So I don't think that, as a place for investors to be looking, you have a lot of international investors who are also pulling their money out of the U.S. market. It's very soft right now, and I don't think we've hit bottom yet.
All right, now both of you, can we blame this entire downward spiral on investor confidence? And if so, what's it going to take to boost the confidence? Mr. Kiyosaki, you first.
Absolutely not. Historically, there's always booms and busts. And right now, we're on this witch hunt and looking for people to blame, like the CEOs. And I really think the investors really need to look at their own basic education.
So you just think this is cyclical? You expected this kind of thing?
Yeah, I disagree.
Absolutely, it's cyclical.
All right, and Mr. Harper, you're disagreeing?
Yeah, I do disagree. I mean, if you look at what happens with some of the CEOs, Arthur Andersen was one of the premier firms in accounting. Their practices are what have really driven a lot of this. And I think that, when you have companies like Enron, when you have companies like Merck, who have done the kind of financial accounting that really is criminal, then I think that, every investor out there, a lot of us on Wall Street were taken aback by some of the egregious behavior that we've seen happen, over the last, 6 or 7 months. It had nothing to do with the war on terror. They're redoing their numbers going back 2 years, as long before anything that happened, with the World Trade Center. And so I think that these were problems that are systematic within the system, and until they're changed and until people get locked up, I think that, we're not going to see anything happen.
All right, now, this egregious behavior that you just referenced, of course, we heard from the president, but shouldn't Alan Greenspan also be one addressing this matter? And if he does, how much a difference do you think he's going to make, Mr. Kiyosaki?
Not much. I think historically you need to look at all the losing investors want somebody to blame. So they're looking to somebody to blame. They blame Michael Milken and Charles Keating after '87. And they put them in jail. And the mood sentiment of investors is the same. They're looking for somebody to blame and throw in jail, rather than look at their own incompetence as investors.
So who do you think they're blaming now?
They're blaming the CEOs and the system and all this, when really a boom is always followed by a bust.
So you're not blaming the CEOs? You don't think these gentlemen or ladies should be taken to task?
Oh, I think if you did something criminal, definitely should go to jail, as well as Arthur Andersen has done something obviously illegal. But I'm just saying, historically, this has always happened. I thought Greenspan would be the person they would go after, but thank God he didn't do anything illegal. If he had, he would have been the scapegoat.
I just do not believe that Mr. Greenspan has anything to do with the reason that, CEOs were doing this kind of funny accounting. And I think that if you look at the average investor out there, investors were basing their opinions on whether they should buy based on the idea that the information that they were getting from one of the premier accounting firms out there said that there was some solid information and solid companies out there like Enron. And Enron was clearly not doing that. Enron was, cooking the books. If you look at what happened with some of these other firms, a lot of us on Wall Street were basing our information and our recommendations to clients based on the fact that we were getting poor information, and information that, quite frankly, is criminal.
All right, Mr. Kiyosaki, I want to ask you this. If you say this is just something that really is history in the making, as you expect, how long, then, until this bust stops being a bust?
Well, this one might be a long one. This is a very bad one. but we can't lump all CEOs and all accountants into one batch. We have a bunch of bad eggs, but this was an unprecedented, it was the highest stock market boom in history. And historically, after every boom, there is always criminal behavior. It happened after 29 and da-da-da-da. It just keeps going on. Just look, remember, Michael Milken was sent to jail, as well as Charles Keating, and a whole bunch of savings and loan officers were sent to jail.
Okay.
It is a shareholder looking for somebody to blame for their problems.
All right, bottom line,
I will disagree that there are a lot of bad eggs out there, like Mr. Kiyosaki has said, and until we get rid of them, that's going to be the problem.
Okie doke. Robert Harper, bottom line, I read you say take a hiatus for 6 months, and Robert Kiyosaki, you say bye, bye, bye. Thanks, gentlemen, to both of you.
I'm saying going in.
Going in, get in it then. All right, thanks so much, gentlemen, appreciate it.
Thank you.